For most people, the beginning of the summer period comes with a lot of smiles and beautiful plans to make the best out of the season. However, in 18th century France, in the rural, quiet French province of Gévaudan, a rural land hidden in the hills of southern France, the case was quite the opposite, as this peaceful area was about to be disturbed by vicious, violent, unexplained attacks. The very first reported attack case was an unsuccessful one in the 𝗪𝗏𝗏 forest. A young woman who had been herding her cattle was attacked by a beast, but was saved by the bull in her herd, which later drove the beast away. But after being driven off by the woman's herd, it didn't go too far, because just a few days later, it was back, and the 14-year-old 𝗔𝗓𝗄𝗏 was its first victim. Unlike the first incident, this one didn't end in the same fate. Jan had been peacefully watching over her sheep when the creature attacked her and tore her apart, leaving her remains in the field. As gruesome as that may have sounded, the beast, later referred to as the Beast of Gévaudan, wasn't done with preying on the villagers. And so, as the months rolled by, the attacks continued, focusing on the lone shepherd and herders in their fields, all of whom were killed in the same way, their heads or necks completely bitten off. Months after Bullet's death, two others were attacked, with the first being a 15-year-old girl, and the other a teenage boy. As casualties continued to rise, by the end of the year, rumors started going around that it was almost impossible for one individual to be responsible for all of these attacks. And in line with these rumors, the villagers reported that they had spotted a pair of beasts, while farmers made claims of seeing animals with their pups. As the attacks became even more frequent, witnesses and the newspapers put forward descriptions of what these creatures looked like, with claims that they resembled a gigantic wolf. But considering that wolves were very common in France, this might not have seemed like much of an issue. However, according to the witnesses, these wolves were very different. These ones were rust-colored of their fur with a tasseled tail, and along its spine was a black stripe with muzzles like those of pigs. But with such chaotic descriptions, there was no exact way to determine what this thing was. But this was the least of the villagers' problems. They cared less about what it actually was. They simply wanted it to stop. And they wanted revenge. But unfortunately, that was almost impossible. At the time, peasants weren't allowed to own firearms, and rocks and shovels, well, they weren't doing much. Every waking day that passed, the attacks got worse and worse. And soon the entire press started bringing out stories, engaging all of France with reports of a ravaging creature going around and killing villagers. And on the 12th of January, in 1765, it struck again, and this time it was worse than it had ever been. The beast charged a group of 8 children that were tending cattle in a meadow, but with the bravery of 10-year-old 𝗧𝗶𝗴𝗲, who was able to lead his friends to drive off the beast. Thankfully, this turned out to be a failed comeback for the beast. This news of 𝗏𝗏's bravery immediately got to the courts of Louis XV. Apparently, it wasn't until then that the King of France was informed of the rampage that had been going on in France. The king therefore pledged to destroy the beast, as he sent out a troop of dragoons to hunt it down under the command of Captain 𝗔𝗏𝗏. Following this assignment, a half-eaten body of a woman was found by her children in the field. 𝗔𝗏𝗏 then ordered that the body not be buried, and that his men patrol the area for a couple of days, hoping that the beast would return so it could finish its meal. But to their dismay, that never happened. Considering how successful this was, 𝗔𝗏𝗏 thought of yet another means to capture the beast. Knowing that the beast mostly attacked women and children in the area, 𝗔𝗏𝗏 came up with a plan. The plan involved his troops putting on wigs and old skirts to escort children into the fields. But after doing this for about 12 days in 8 different villages, the beast was a no-show. This was in no way going to discourage 𝗔𝗏𝗏, and since he couldn't get the beast to come to him, he went in search of it, regardless of where that was going to take him. But regardless of how much was put into the task, it only ended up unsuccessful, with several near misses. Following the unsuccessful turn of events, 𝗔𝗏𝗏 went on to lament how these misses were a result of the incompetence of his troopers, and how they completely frustrated all of the opportunities that he got. Louis XV therefore decided to send out professional hunters, Jean-Charles d'Anville and his son Jean-François, to assist Captain 𝗔𝗏𝗏. These 2 hunters claimed to have captured and killed about 1,200 wolves. However, working alongside the dragoons had to be the most challenging thing yet, For the duo, stealth was how they preferred to hunt, and so Duhamel's loud cavalry patrols made the work unbearably hard. Hence, this was once again another unsuccessful attempt. Leaving Duhamel frustrated once again, he even went on to state his belief in the beast's identity as a hybrid of a lion, father, and a mother of an unknown species. The de Nivelles, on the other hand, were no better off, also proving to be unsuccessful. Regardless of how unsuccessful the latter had been, Louis XV wasn't going to give up until he knew that the country was rid of its oppressor. And so, he resorted to sending his personal gun-bearer and bodyguard, François-Antoine, to Gévaudan, accompanied by de Nivelles. During the hunt, it was recounted that the beast had made another attempt to attack 19-year-old Marie-Jeanne Vallée while she was attempting to cross the narrow log bridge over the river Desnay with her little sister. 𝗏𝗏, armed with a homemade spear, as the beast approached, screamed for help and was able to thrust her spear into the beast's chest, pulling its forelegs off the ground. Almost immediately, the beast withdrew. Soon the men ran out to her help, only to find the end of her spear coated in blood. But unlike all the others that have claimed to have an opinion on what the beast looked like, Vallée simply described it to have a similar size to a large farm dog. To celebrate her bravery, a statue of her was put up in the French village of Auvers and still stands today. Following the attack, Antoine went hunting for another 3 months, and unlike the others, he was able to shoot and kill a large wolf. Most of the survivors confirmed to be their attacker, but that wasn't it. While his son was sent back with the stuffed wolf, Antoine stayed back in Gévaudan with the hopes of killing more beasts, since the villagers were convinced that an individual couldn't have been the reason behind all of the attacks. Successfully, Antoine hunted down and killed the large wolf's mate, and what was supposed to be its cub, but it was a lot larger than its parents. With all that he had achieved, Antoine returned to Paris for his reward, feeling, as you should, fulfilled. However, the course of events that followed only showed that Antoine had either not killed all of the beasts, or any at all, because just a couple of months after, the attacks started again. And just like the other first attacks, this one was also unsuccessful, as a 12-year-old boy struck it multiple times to make it let go of his younger brother. But while the boy was able to successfully free his younger brother, he couldn't save the rest of the villagers, whose heads were forcefully torn from their bodies. Convinced that the issue had been dealt with by his trusted bodyguard, Louis XV failed to send out any more support. So, for the next year, the beast, or beasts as they believed, continued to rampage the land. And since the king's courts weren't providing any help, the local marquis decided to organize a hunt. It was during one of these hunts that amateur hunter Jean Chastel shot and killed a huge wolf, using a homemade combination of a large caliber bullet and a silver buckshot. Just like that, he was able to achieve what the dragoons and professional hunters couldn't. This was later used as reference in folklore, that what is required to kill werewolves are silver bullets. On July 17, 1767, the beast fell, and that was the end of the terror of the Beast of Gévaudan in France. During an autopsy on the wolf, it was found that the stomach of the beast still held the remains of its last victims. It was later recorded that the estimated number of casualties was around 113 individuals. And just like the villagers, many scholars believe that the most reasonable explanation was that this was done by not just a family of wolves, but rather different packs, with the most probable cause being the presence of Aubrac breed of cattle, which was strong enough to protect itself. This explains why the beasts would flee when they were around, hence they couldn't feed on them. Until today, scholars are still yet to figure out what exactly these beasts were. But truthfully, it just could be in our favor that these beasts remain the beasts of Gévaudan that terrorized the 18th century France. Leave them in the history books.